Have you ever felt how a single thought can pierce you like a knife? Imagine for a moment that you are alone, in the dim light, and suddenly your mind throws at you a reminder you'd rather bury. You are going to die. Not tomorrow, not in 1,000,000 years, not as a metaphor. You are going to die. Time runs, and every second you hear this message is one less second on your account. Do you notice your breathing speeding up? That is not accidental. It's your body reminding you of the truth you're trying to drown out with trivial distractions. You've played at living as if you were eternal for too long. You procrastinate, hesitate, hide behind excuses as if death won't find you. But here's the blow. It is already looking for you, and it does not rest. Heidegger understood this better than anyone. Man only awakens when he feels the edge of his end brushing his skin. As long as you believe there is time, you will live asleep, trapped in an anesthetized routine. But when you accept that the clock does not stop, every breath becomes an act of rebellion. Every moment burns with a glow you have never seen before. The fear you feel now is not an error. It is the call. It is the proof that you can still transform your existence. And in this video, I'll give you more than words. I'll show you how the awareness of your own death can be the most powerful engine to truly live. Stay until the end, because you will get the answer that will change the way you look at every remaining day you have. Have you ever thought about how death strips away all the masks you wear? The instant you remember that everything ends, other people's opinions stop weighing you down. Possessions lose their sheen, and even the small everyday dramas become ridiculous. Because what value does a petty quarrel have when you know the hourglass is running out? It is then that the most brutal clarity hits you. True luxury is time, and you have been squandering it as if it were infinite. The curious thing is that this same awareness of finitude, far from sinking you, can wrench you out of paralysis. Heidegger called it being toward death, not as a fatalist cry, but as the recognition that limit is what gives life its shape. Think about it. If you were eternal, nothing would have urgency. Nothing would matter enough. The promise of eternity is the perfect recipe for indifference. But knowing that you will disappear turns every decision into a sharp edge, every encounter into an unrepeatable moment. Look around you. Most people live as if life were a dress rehearsal. They postpone their passions. They file their dreams in a dusty drawer, waiting for some supposed right moment that never arrives. And here comes the unsettling part. That drawer closes forever the day death knocks at the door. Do you see the trap? The fear of dying kills more lives than death itself. Because while you wait, while you hide, while you think you can plan tomorrow, life slips through your fingers. When you understand this, even the small things vibrate differently. A conversation becomes a gift. A glance becomes a universe. A tiny action becomes an act of resistance against nothingness. The ephemeral gains weight, and the trivial is revealed as an unforgivable loss. It is a silent but irreversible change. You can no longer live as before, because every step echoes with the certainty that everything is borrowed. And here something even more disturbing arises. What would you do if you knew the exact date of your end? Would you keep wasting hours on hollow distractions? Would you remain stuck in jobs you hate, or in relationships that are already dead? That is the paradox Heidegger revealed. We do not need someone to tell us when we will die. It is enough to accept that that day exists. Simple acceptance awakens a different fire, one that will not allow you to return to the comfort of unconsciousness. Death is not an enemy. It is the compass that always points north. The problem is you prefer to cover it up with noise, with screams, with the illusion of control. But that silence you avoid is precisely where opportunity lies. Only there, facing the certainty of the inevitable, do you discover what truly matters. And that discovery, although painful, is the key to your freedom. Have you noticed how the idea of death also changes the way you perceive time? When you assume the end is non-negotiable, you discover that life isn't measured in years or calendars, but in intensity. Suddenly, it matters less how many days you have, and more what you do with each of them. And here, an unsettling contrast appears. Most people count their lives as if adding coins, but they forget that true wealth doesn't lie in quantity, but in the quality of experience. Imagine each day were a lit candle. Some let it burn slowly until it consumes itself without having illuminated anything. Others decide to use that flame to set everything around them alight, to give warmth, to leave a mark. The fire will go out anyway, but the difference is what happened while it burned. And that is the hidden lesson. You cannot escape the end, but you can choose the kind of blaze you leave behind. Fascinatingly, death, by reminding us of our limit, also teaches us to say no. Because only when you are aware that time is finite, do you understand that you cannot give it to everything or everyone. You begin to filter with brutal honesty what deserves your attention, to cut the chaff from the wheat, to let go of hollow commitments and empty conversations. That selection, which may seem harsh, is actually the greatest act of love toward yourself. It is not selfishness. It is conscious survival. And then something strange happens. You start valuing the simple with a force you didn't suspect before. A quiet coffee, a sincere laugh, an unhurried walk. All of that becomes gold, because suddenly you no longer see it as routine, but as part of that treasure that is running out. Death makes the everyday shine, as if it bathed it in a secret light that reveals what was always there, and you never looked at with the attention it deserved. But there is something even deeper. Death is also the mirror in which your authenticity is reflected. As long as you live as if immortal, you will adapt to what others expect. You will pretend. You will play a role to fit into a script you did not write. However, when you accept that the curtain will drop without warning, pretending stops making sense. Why spend your final acts performing in a play that isn't yours? The inevitable end forces you to be yourself, even if that makes others uncomfortable, even if it separates you, even if it leaves you alone. That is the liberating paradox. The fear of dying can become the most radical permission to live like never before. And this is where Heidegger was most incisive. True existence does not begin until you stop fleeing from the end. What he understood, and what few dare to accept, is that death not only reminds us that we are fragile, but also pushes us to be authentic. The anguish it produces is not a mistake. It is a compass. And if you follow it, it leads you to a more honest, more yours, more real life. Disturbingly, very few dare to hold that gaze without blinking. Most prefer to anesthetize themselves, to drown in distractions, to pretend time is a resource that will always be there. But those who dare to face it head-on discover something the others never will. Death, far from being an enemy, is the silent ally that can pull you out of mediocrity. And now tell me something. If you knew death was sitting across from you, looking at you with infinite patience, what would you do with your next dawn? Would you continue to hand it over to the same routines that wear your soul down, or would you invest it in something that truly bears your name? Death does not need to hurry. It knows that sooner or later it will get what it came for. What it does not know is whether you, before giving it your last breath, dared to live in a way that you yourself would consider worthy of remembrance. And now that we've made this far, before we continue, I want to present the following to you. Our book, The Formula of Awakening, is now available. Do you feel like there's something inside you that wants to awaken, but you don't know where to start? Then I invite you to transform your way of thinking, and with it, your way of living. Discover who you can become. Start today. The link to get the ebook is in the first pinned comment of this video. Grab your copy now at a great price. With that said, let's continue with the video. That is the secret many will never discover. That death not only marks the end, it is also the opportunity to truly begin. Not tomorrow, not when the circumstances are perfect, but now, in this very instant, while your hands still tremble with life. It is the reminder that time doesn't return, and that every day you waste is a silent pact with oblivion. And here is my challenge to you. Stop running. Face that certainty and use it as fuel. Turn fear into drive, anguish into courage, and fragility into power. Because whoever understands death masters life. That is the paradox that changes everything. So I want you to leave me one sentence in the comments. A single sentence that will be your declaration against nothingness. Death will not stop me. Write it, and by doing so you will be sealing your commitment to begin living with more strength, more authenticity, more urgency. If this message has stirred something inside you, subscribe to the channel, because here we will keep decoding the secrets no one dares to tell you. Don't let this be just another video. Make it the beginning of real change. And I say goodbye to you in the most direct way possible. Remember that every second that passes while you close this video is one less second of your life. But if you decide to use it consciously, that second can become the most valuable of all. So don't waste it. Play with death, because it's already playing with you. See you in the shadow.